Sup all, born in Asphodel Meadow here, and this is my second video tonight. I'm just in that kind of mood. A lot of people, very opinionated people like myself, have kind of hot button issues. Like, I'm passionate about lots of things. Religion, politics, music, that I'll debate about. I'll share my opinions about, stuff like that. But, my most recent phase that I'm going into is the desert. I like talking about the desert and spreading the word about the desert. Needless to say, I'm not a fan. My idea of hell would be a place with many religious extremists who are all closed-minded, a place that's very hot, and a place that's very dry. So, the desert is pretty up there on the list of places I would not want to visit anytime soon. But there's a worse problem going on in the desert, and that problem is expansion. The desert is expanding. I've known about it for a while, people have known about it for a while. A lot of people tried to deny it or say it was just in our minds, but several studies have proven that it is actually happening, slowly or quickly depending on what desert. Just Google it, you'll find plenty of papers that have been written on it. The desert is expanding because the desert is the geographical equivalent of cancer. It's dry, it's impossible for, not impossible, it's very, very challenging for plants to grow in it unless they've already been extremely conditioned to life in the desert. And not much can live in it in comparison with a place where there's lots of moisture and fertile ground. There's a border between the deserts and the forests of the world, and that border is the grassland. The reason that the sand is advancing on this land is because sand blows. It's very dusty. It's easily picked up by the wind. And if even a thin layer of sand covers the ground, it makes it a real challenge for grass and stuff like that to reproduce and to thrive, because the seeds can't penetrate the soil well enough and can't get the moisture that they need. So, with just sand by itself, sand can kill the ground. Trees would survive. Trees wouldn't be phased as much as grass would. And assuming nature had enough resources, enough water, and enough time, it could fight off the desert's expansion with just that. But the other element of the desert's expansion is the human factor. As with many global issues today in the environment, humans are intervening in a way that's not positive. If a human lives in a forest, what could a human possibly need from a desert? There's plants, animals to feed on. There's easily available shelter that would not be available in the desert. However, for some unfortunate reason, people have chosen to live in the desert. And if someone lives in the desert, there are a great many things they need from forests. Plants for shelter, to eat, animals to hunt, stuff like that. And they have to journey to the grasslands in the forest to get these resources. Among these resources are trees, which are the only thing that can really stand as bulwarks against the sand's advancement. The entire thing is that the roots of plants keep the soil moist and contingent. And if sand blows on it and kills the grass, the soil becomes loose and then therefore easily dried out and displaced, and then it becomes sand itself. It's assimilating the ground. And when the trees are cut down by humans to make wood and fire and stuff like that, you're taking away the biggest defense the forest has against the sand's advancement. So then you've got the humans who are cutting down the trees and the sand that's killing the grass. So the desert is expanding like a wildfire. But even with these factors, the forest might be able to fight off the desert, or at least slow it down. But the third, and possibly the worst cause for the desert's expansion, is drought and the lack of water. In a study called Expansion and Contraction of the Sahara Desert from 1980 to 1990 by C.J. Tucker, W.W. Newcomb, and H.E. Drain, they state that the annual expansion of the desert is directly relevant to the annual rainfall in the desert. The more rain, the slower the desert advanced. The reason that plants can't reproduce fast enough to keep the desert at bay is that there isn't enough water. If I was a billionaire and I had tons of money to throw at whatever cause I wanted, I wouldn't be wasting it on AIDS research like these guys like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. It's a waste of money, honestly. What really people should be doing is investing money in trying to stop global catastrophes waiting to happen, like global warming and the desert's expansion. There are already governments everywhere trying to stop the advancement of the desert. In China, to protect the Mogao vacation grottos, resources have already been allocated to forest the area and to prevent the desert from encroaching, as well as tons of money for research to preventative methods to keep the desert from expanding. In Mauritania, the government paid for 250,000 trees to be planted at the border of the desert just to act as a barrier for the wind and the sand, just to stop the desert from expanding. And you know what? It's working. It's actually possible to slow this stuff down. And if we don't slow it down, there's going to be less available resource and more people who are depending on this kind of sustenance in that area of the world where there is an actual conflict over those resources by the desert, cutting down trees and whatnot. And if we were to stop the desert from encroaching and actually advance the forest border, long term we'd have enough resources to sustain more people. It's like global warming. It's a time-sensitive issue. The longer we leave it, the harder it's going to be to fix. As you can see, this is an issue I care about. Spread the word. Tell your friends and families. We have to do something about this. Anyway, born in Asphodel Meadow. Good night.